Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA stock. Let's talk about what the stock is doing, what we can expect moving forward, and all of that good stuff as per usual. So also as per usual, if you enjoyed, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy these kind of videos, I do have a membership section for just $3 a month. You get access to all my intraday posts, updates, technical analysis, etc. on Tesla and sometimes other stocks as well that I post every now and then, and updates on overall markets, and I'll give you like bonus things like AMD or Google, etc. sometimes as well. Or for $5 a month, you get access to all of that plus NVIDIA daily updates as well. But jumping into it, let's just get into it. Tesla's just on my mind today because 22% on Tesla is crazy. Anyway, NVIDIA up 0.6% on the day, which compared to the market, maybe slight underperformance, but we'll just say more or less in line, roughly, nothing too crazy. But closing at 140.41, just barely, right? Not the most convincing close above the 140 range. So there is a little bit of sign for concern here. Now, I think NVIDIA is finally starting to get a little bit, a little bit tired, I guess is the way to put it, right? The stock seems like it's finally getting a little bit tired here. We had that massive drop yesterday, and then today we had a bit of a green day to kind of make up a bit for it. But, again, I still see issues, right? I'm starting to really see some issues start to develop because so watch. Again, we still have that bearish divergence, like I mentioned many times, right? Higher highs or lower highs on the RSI. That's just a simple bearish divergence. There's nothing really more to say about that. That obviously shows that, the momentum on the bullish end is weakening, right? It is what it is. We have the stochastic, right? Obviously in extreme overbought territories, getting close to crossing bearish. Like I said, once this thing does cross bearish, don't forget, I do set my stochastic to a little bit of a slower, so it's less reactive, I would say. So it's not as quick, but when it does cross, it usually means something, right? And in this case, it hasn't crossed yet. But if this thing ever does cross back to the bearish side, that would be definitely something to watch out for, right? And then of course we have this trend line. So this trend line is a very steep trend line that, it actually held today. It came right down to it and it actually bounced and held. So again, as long as this is holding, NVIDIA is still looking pretty damn solid. But once this trend line is lost at some point, which it will, it's just a matter of when, not if, that's when I think the kind of mini correction will begin on NVIDIA. And if we bring out the market bias, I do think NVIDIA will probably make its way again somewhere down into the 120s, roughly like 125, 126, maybe 123. I don't know exactly where, but somewhere in the 120s is my current target, assuming it happens, let's say within the next week or maybe two, right? That's kind of where I'll be expecting it roughly, because that's where the major support will be. This is where the market bias will be. I assume this is where the 21 EMA. 21 EMA is actually even higher than us. 21 EMA is sitting all the way at 133. And of course, I still want to see roughly a retest of this breakout of this trend line and potentially coming back down to this larger red trend line all the way down here, sitting in the pretty much mid 120s roughly, right? That's kind of what I'll be eyeballing moving forward over the next couple weeks or so for NVIDIA. Maybe faster. I don't know how long it'll take, of course. And then the last thing I'll talk about here is the fact that the BX trender, right? The BX trender is obviously switching back to a red band. So I had a bit of a green false band over here. Then it obviously continued back to red, almost like a little mini bull trap. And of course, it made its first true lower low with the red bar, essentially, if you will, underneath, right? So again, all this means to me is the fact that NVIDIA, it is losing steam. The stock is definitely losing some bullish steam. It is still technically in slightly overbought territories. And, I think it's getting ready to cool off here pretty soon. But again, I do want to make this very clear. Despite me sounding bearish short term, I still think, zoomed out, especially on the weekly, I still think this chart and the stock look incredibly bullish. Like I really do think that the chart looks really, really bullish. The only time I'll actually truly get bearish on NVIDIA, and the only time NVIDIA will actually be like, okay, hold on a second, this thing can actually go down probably like a lot more than this, honestly, is if and when we do come down to the mid-ish 120s, if we go back underneath this trend line that we broke out of, this kind of see-through one right here, you can see if we go back down under it, that's pretty bearish in my opinion. Like you don't want that to happen, right? You want this to hold. You want NVIDIA to essentially come back down like this, bounce and move up, right? That's essentially the ideal scenario. Another thing that it can be potentially bearish that I would be definitely concerned to see are these two red lines that are essentially forming this very large channel on NVIDIA. Which again, similar to what I just said, if and when NVIDIA finally does that mini correction and it does finally come back to somewhere in the 120s, that'll also line up with this mini trend line, which is very similar to this trend line I have here roughly on the daily chart, right? Same idea, right? You want this level to hold. If I see NVIDIA lose this bottom red trend line, that could be really bearish as well. Like this thing can potentially come down like this and make its way well below, and honestly potentially even go back into the 90s. Like as crazy as that sounds, that actually becomes a possibility. But, and this is a massive but, of course, it needs to break below this red line. So as long as it's above it, I see no reason to be long-term bearish on NVIDIA at all. Like I think you'd be a fool to be bearish on NVIDIA as long as it's within this channel. Very, very large, weekly, powerful channel. So, you know, just watch for that. That's in my opinion, you know, that'll take much longer, right? This is a weekly time frame, so this will take longer to play out. It's not going to happen tomorrow or next week probably as well. This could probably take, you know, a few weeks to potentially play out, maybe come back down to that somewhere in the 120s, get that retest, make sure it holds, and then, you know, we rally back up maybe post-election or something like that, right? Is my kind of guess right now. So that's kind of what I'm expecting moving forward, right? So we'll see how it plays out. But as of right now, I am still expecting NVIDIA to ultimately, sooner than later, lose this trend line, begin this correction, most likely make its way back down to somewhere in the 120s. I expect it to hold, of course. As of right now, I expect it to hold. I don't see why it wouldn't. It had something, I think, drastic would have to happen for it to come back down and not hold this kind of, you know, 120s-ish region. But again, as of right now, I expect it to hold, and I expect NVIDIA to bounce probably pretty substantially off of that level and make its way ultimately to fresh all-time highs even after all that as well. So that's my current projection on NVIDIA moving forward, right? So watch for those levels. Again, the weekly time frame will take longer to play out, but the daily time frame I think will be much faster based on what I'm seeing right now in my indicators. And I do think it's probably going to happen. Honestly, it might even happen tomorrow, but it could even be as early as next week. So we'll see how this plays out, but that's kind of my current projection, right? I still don't think NVIDIA is an attractive buy here. For me personally, technically speaking, I think fundamentally it's an absolutely, you know, phenomenal company, don't get me wrong, but strictly off of technicals, I don't think it's a good buy here. Unless you, I guess, have a very tight stop loss, essentially on a break and confirmed close underneath this trend line, which could be an option, to be completely honest. But again, this trend line is very, very steep. And even just opening tomorrow with a red day could be enough to already start essentially having us lose this trend line. So again, it's very, very steep. Like these very steep trend lines, they don't last all that long. I'm surprised even this actually lasted as long as it has already. So just watch for that, in my opinion, right? In terms of options flow, NVIDIA, of course, is going to be, where is it actually? NVIDIA is nowhere really to be found. It seems like, it's right here. Third one, 11, almost 12 million confirmed bullish flow, which isn't too bad. By the way, the VIX, I talked about this in my Tesla video. Some, you know, nice calls came in on the VIX today. One put, of course, but a lot more calls came in on the VIX today, pretty much for November 20th. That's not that far out. That's like pretty much a month out. Clearly, someone's either hedging or they expect potential volatility to really kick in, obviously, as we get, you know, closer and closer to what could be a pretty heated election. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see if the market pulls back or not, you know, relative to this, you know, within the next couple of weeks or so. And let's go from there, right? We'll, you know, take a step by step and day by day. And let's go ahead and check out NVIDIA's flow here very quickly. Definitely more bullish and bearish flow. Obviously, that's, you know, no questions asked about that. But yeah, NVIDIA's still looking pretty solid overall. But I do think short term, like very short term, you know, it is getting a little bit exhausted, to say the least, right? After a very phenomenal and very, you know, respectable rally, of course. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Let me know what you think down below. But thank you all so much for watching. See you for the next one. Peace.